Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. This, I suppose, should have probably just been my introductory podcast. Like, what's the whole purpose of this podcast and why I am doing what I'm doing? The real reason that I create, why I write, record, and share, even if 5 people hear it, it's probably like me, my mom, 2 clients, and then me from my work computer, right? Um, Someone asked me recently, who's your audience? And it kind of landed like a punch because my interpretation of that was that it's all about performance or that like the goal is applause. And in truth, it's the opposite. Most mornings before my day fills with clients, paperwork, and whatever's going on in my inbox and all the missed calls and voicemails and everything, I anchor myself in reflection. I don't ever ask clients to do things that I don't apply for myself. And so part of my daily process is I just start by talking stuff out or writing and metabolizing my own experiences, regrounding in the principles that keep me steady. And I create because it helps me stay aligned. Now, I am no Marcus Aurelius, although I love meditations. If you have not picked that up, that is a really incredible piece of timeless wisdom. But a theme in meditations was there was a lot of repetition and a lot of correcting his own impulses in real time, and that's how the Stoics rewired themselves. Uh, Meditations was not meant to be published and to be read in 2025. It wasn't meant to be like a linear argument. It was just kind of his mental training log. And again, I'm not Marcus Aurelius, but that's kind of one of the themes of this podcast is it really all starts in my own mental process. And hopefully that is what helps me keep sane, and maybe it helps somebody else along the way. Every article that I write functions like a lab note from my own recovery. Every episode is me talking through the realities of trauma, emotions, relationships, and the lizard brain wiring that we're all trying to work around. So this is much more about like my own personal practice long before it's anything that is public. Numbers, my website analytics, they're comical. I mean, I've been publishing for probably about 2 years, and I write probably somewhere in the ballpark of 100 articles a year, and I don't do that for an audience or for applause. Uh, Most of them are read by me. And a handful crack like 30 or sometimes 100 views, and that's kind of interesting. But probably out of 100 views, it's me going back to that article 97 times because I'm so proud of it. Maybe. But I write the stuff because it's how I stay in touch with the part of me that is growing. It's how I metabolize the lived experience of being a human being with my own recovery and relationships and purpose and trying to find discipline, all of it. So the impact, if it reaches people, great. I believe that I have to do my part and that the right people may find it. But impact emerges from consistency, not an audience size. So here's what I know with zero doubt is if I spent the amount of time that I do with reading, writing, and podcasting, and I spent that only in a peer-led meeting here in Naples with the same 15 to 20 people every day who have heard me say the same things, and I've heard them say the same things 15 to 20 to 30 times. I think that the reach of my recovery and what I can share with other people would really be capped by Naples' geography and proximity. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just a tool, and it can kind of also stop at the walls of the New Attitudes Club. So a piece that's written online is different. A podcast episode is different. They're living things that travel through networks. Maybe they get found by accident or shared or bookmarked by someone that's in a completely different season of life. And some of those people may have never even found that stuff because they wouldn't have gone to a peer-led meeting because maybe they didn't think that they had a problem with drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. So that's the reason that I do it, not for fame, not recognition, not because I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan. I do it because it sharpens me and it keeps my recovery active. So if someone else benefits in that process, that's great. That's a bonus. I'll keep writing and I'll keep reflecting. And if the audience grows beyond tens of listeners, that's great. Because the starting point was always been about like my own process, not applause. A big part of this podcast audience is not for people who are in addiction recovery or with addictions at all. Just for people who feel stuck in their lives, overwhelmed by their emotions or weighed down by a story that they haven't figured out how to rewrite yet. It's for people who have outgrown old frameworks but don't know where they're going to anchor next. For people who have read all the books, listened to all the experts, that you've gone to Tony Robbins and walked across some hot coals, you've done the journals, you've followed the podcast, you did some therapy, you did some Zen meditation, tried being logical, tried being emotional, and then still found that you were still carrying some internal weight that didn't have a clean name. Yeah, it's for you. For the people who aren't falling apart, but aren't thriving either. Or for the ones who keep functioning, keep performing, keep handling their responsibilities, but feel like they're just internally just like, is this it? A lot of people who listen to this kind of podcast may not be seeking sobriety. They may just be seeking clarity or direction or language for things that they feel but they don't know how to articulate, because I see that all the time in my office. People trying to break cycles that they never chose, or they grew up in chaos and they don't want that for their adult relationships, that they feel deeply and then they've been slapped with a label like borderline, when what they're really just trying to figure out is how to regulate their emotions and heal their wounds. Or people who are successful on paper but empty inside, or trying to understand their anger or their anxiety or the things that they've been avoiding. A theme that I think will be on here a lot, because I see it in the office a lot and I've lived it, is choosing partners with the same patterns and not understanding why you keep reliving that same loop. The podcast is for all of them, for people who are hungry for meaning, depth, emotional vocabulary, and without bumper sticker slogans and toxic positivity. That does not work. Well, maybe it works for some people. It didn't work for me, or it felt like it barely scratched the surface for me. You know who else this is for is people who don't want content that talks down to you or moralize or pretend that life is just overly simple or that you can just kind of accept away or I don't know. There's been a lot that I think did not fit for me. And so this is kind of an integration of what are some other things that I learned that I didn't get in the beginning of my recovery program. And for those that maybe do have some sort of a thing that they want to work through with behavior change or with a substance problem, another audience is for people who have tried to find their place in peer-led recovery meetings, but didn't feel like it fit. Not because they didn't try, not because they weren't ready, not because they were resistant, but because something in the language didn't fit the shape of their wounds. And I see that all the time in the office. People who can't get past labeling themselves alcoholic, and that some people in some of those programs might be like, oh, that's just so much ego. And is it? Maybe. It might. For some people, it might be. And maybe for some of those people, they are an alcoholic. Many absolutely are. But does that mean that they have to build their identity around that word that like shrinks their complexity? I don't know if that's going to fit for everybody. And other people have spiritual injuries. There's some people that they have been really, really hurt by organized religion, and then they walk into a meeting broken from, from whatever they have been doing in addiction, and then all they hear is God every sentence and character defects and the Lord's Prayer. And for people who are already carrying religion trauma, that is not grounding, that's activating. I've heard stories of people where they said that something didn't resonate with a spiritual angle, and one guy in AA said, well, that's all there is, it's a spiritual program. And that's the kind of rigidity that keeps people out. Now, I am not anti-12-step, not at all, and I'm not anti-peer support, but I am pro-access. And I think that some people get shut out by the rigidity of certain scripts. I had a client once who was just so anti-12-step. She rejected the 12 steps, and then I reframed it with DBT principles. And it was nearly identical to the steps, just a little bit of a reframe. I didn't change the spirit of it at all. I just translated it into something that didn't trigger her wounds, and suddenly she was fully aligned with every idea. And that kind of stuck with me because this is the truth. Most therapy frameworks overlap. Probably 80 or 90% of therapy, coaching, psychology, self-help, it all points to the same human mechanisms, just different angles. But in some peer-led spaces, important concepts can get glossed over, like self-abandonment, attachment trauma, emotional literacy, boundaries, your nervous system, shame cycles, and how you can rebuild trust with your instincts and in your relationships. So to hear like, yeah, your best thinking got you here, you may strip them from the agency that they need to heal. I had a meeting once that I was really put off that somebody, a kind of gruff, quote unquote, old timer, told me that if he tells you to strip down and push a quarter down the side of the street with your nose, you do it to stay sober. And some people have that kind of willingness and brokenness that they're willing to do that. I did. That's how broken I was when I came into recovery. But not everybody is there. And if that's the only approach, then we are losing a lot of people. And so I'm passionate about that. And that's not ego or me thinking that I'm going to be the next guru. It's that I want to I want people to find the same healing that I did, in probably in a language that might fit better for them. So, who's this podcast for? For people standing between frameworks. For people who tried a meeting and didn't feel like they connected. Or for people who want recovery and they want healing, but they don't want dogma. Or that they don't want to abandon their intuition just to fit in a mold and to say the same thing as everybody else. So this is about integrating psychology, trauma work, spirituality. I think is important. Some, maybe none. Everybody needs to find the right combination for them and then build that into something that feels like it's their life, not my life. This is about integrated recovery, meaning peer support. Yeah, it's really important, but it's a piece, not the whole thing. My needs aren't better, they're just different, and a lot of people's needs are different, and those people are the ones that are building something nuanced, honest, and self-directed, and they're my audience too. So, why do I do what I do? It starts with my own process to keep my own recovery sharp. And I believe that I stay sharp, and it's my task to put that out there. And if 10 people are meant to hear it and I'm 9 of them, great. I stayed sober. I reaffirmed the stuff that I work on and that I do for me. And if it helps a client, great. And if it helps somebody in Italy, incredible. And if it turns into 500 people, amazing. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But that's kind of my motivation. I've had a few friends or people that I've known from peer recovery that have asked. And so my first episode on here, it was atrocious. It was so bad. But I'm going to keep it on there because the same way that I encourage clients, just do it messy. It's okay if it's bad. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm keeping that episode on there. My voice is raspy. There's music's crappy. It's poorly mixed. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm starting, and so I'm gonna keep it on there. That's the one about saying no. I will probably reprioritize them, but that's who this podcast's for. I hope that it lands with the right people that need it. And listen, if something that I say isn't a match for you, that's okay too. That's why there's I don't even know how many podcasts there are. Thousands. Why there are so many different self-help books. They're all for different populations, all of that stuff. So I think water finds its own level. The people that are meant to hear this probably will. And for the people that it doesn't land with, maybe it just wasn't for you, and that's okay too. Guess my dog wanted to say hi. I mean, come on, guys! I'm recording from my home office with a $20 headset, but if the right people are supposed to hear it, then they will. So I'm glad you found me. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Please be kind to yourself and be kind to others. We're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. Otherwise, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.